Ethan Miller looked out the window of the transport ship as it approached the massive space station. The Galactic Confederation Academy floated in space like a giant metal flower, with curved sections extending outward from a central hub. Ethan's heart beat faster. After months of applications, tests, and medical exams, he was finally here, the first human exchange student from his high school to be accepted. "All passengers for the Academy, please prepare for docking," announced a smooth voice in several languages. Ethan grabbed his backpack and the small suitcase containing everything from Earth he was allowed to bring. The artificial gravity on the ship was lighter than Earth's, making him feel bouncy and awkward as he walked toward the exit. The docking bay was filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Ethan saw tall, thin aliens with 4 arms rushing past short, squat creatures that rolled more than walked. Flying beings zipped overhead, while something that looked like a giant jellyfish floated peacefully in a corner. A green-skinned alien with 6 eyes approached him. "You must be the human student. I am Zixtar, but you can call me Zix. I will be your roommate." Zix had 2 arms, 6 eyes arranged in a circle around his head, and skin that changed slightly in color as he spoke. "Nice to meet you." "I'm Ethan," he replied, trying not to stare. He had seen aliens in videos before, but meeting one in person was different. "Let me show you to our room. You must be tired after your journey." Zix took one of Ethan's bags and led him through busy hallways. Other students stopped to look at Ethan, some whispering to each other. "Why is everyone staring?" Ethan asked quietly. "Oh, you do not know. Humans are quite famous, or perhaps infamous. Here," Zix said cheerfully. "You are Deathworlders." "We're what?" "Deathworlders. Beings who evolved on extremely dangerous planets. Earth is classified as a Class 12 planet. Very high gravity, extreme weather, dangerous animals, plate tectonics, and so much radiation from your sun. Most species here come from Class 3 or 4 worlds." Ethan frowned. "Earth doesn't seem that dangerous to me." "That is what makes humans so interesting. You live in constant danger and think it is normal. The strength of your muscles alone is remarkable. Most students here have never seen a Deathworlder up close." They arrived at a door that slid open automatically. Inside was a simple room with 2 beds, 2 desks, and a large window showing the stars outside. One side was decorated with strange plants and glowing rocks. "That side is yours," Zix pointed to the empty bed. "The bathroom is through that door. It has been adjusted for human needs." Ethan put his suitcase down and sat on the bed. It was softer than he expected. "Classes begin tomorrow," Zix continued. "I took the liberty of downloading your schedule. We share practical applications of theoretical physics with Professor Velmax. The rest of your courses are standard first-year curriculum with adjustments for human physiology." "Is there another human here?" "I was told there might be." "Yes, a female named Lori Watson. She arrived last week from another part of Earth. I believe you will meet her in physics class." A bell sound echoed through the room, and Zix's eyes all blinked at once. "That is the dinner signal. The cafeteria has been stocked with human-safe food. Would you like to go together?" Ethan nodded, suddenly realizing how hungry he was. As they walked to the cafeteria, more aliens stopped to look at him. Some moved away as if afraid, while others leaned in with curiosity. In the large cafeteria, foods of all colors and textures were displayed. In one corner, a section was marked with the Earth symbol. "There is your food section," Zix said. "I will get my meal and meet you at that table." As Ethan walked to the Earth food station, he heard whispers. "That's a human. Deathworlder. I heard they can break bones just by squeezing. My parents says they fought wars against each other for thousands of years." Ethan picked up a tray of what looked like pasta and salad. He took a deep breath and reminded himself why he was here. This was a chance to learn about the galaxy and show everyone what humans were really like. Tomorrow would be his first class. He hoped he was ready. Ethan woke up to a gentle chiming sound. He opened his eyes and saw Zix already dressed and organizing strange-looking tools on his desk. "Good morning, Ethan. Did you sleep well in our lower gravity?" Zix asked cheerfully. "Actually, I kept floating off the bed," Ethan admitted as he sat up. "Is there a way to make it more like Earth gravity in here?" "Of course. I should have mentioned that." Zix pressed a panel on the wall near Ethan's bed. "You can adjust your personal gravity field. Most Deathworlders prefer their native conditions." Ethan felt his body become heavier as the gravity increased. "That's much better. Thanks." After a quick shower and breakfast, Ethan followed Zix to their first class. The hallways were busy with students of all shapes and sizes moving between rooms. Some flew above the crowd while others slithered below. "Here we are," Zix said, stopping at a large door. "Practical applications of theoretical physics with Professor Velnax." The classroom was arranged in a semicircle with rising seats facing a central platform. Most seats were already filled with aliens. Ethan noticed one empty seat next to a human girl with short brown hair. "You must be Ethan," she said as he approached. "I'm Lori Watson. Nice to see another human face around here." "Nice to meet you," Ethan replied, sitting down. "How long have you been here?" "Just a week. Still getting used to everything." "Have you met Professor Velnax yet?" Before Ethan could answer, the door opened and the room fell silent. An elderly alien floated into the room. Professor Velnax had blue skin that seemed to shimmer with tiny lights, no visible legs, and 4 long arms that moved gracefully as he spoke. "Welcome, students, to another cycle of learning." The professor's voice resonated through the room. "I see we have 2 Deathworlders this term. How fascinating." Ethan felt all eyes turn toward him and Lori. "Now let us begin with a review of 11-dimensional space folding," the professor continued. Ethan tried to follow along, but much of what Professor Velnax discussed involved mathematics he had never seen before. When the professor referred to obvious 4th-dimensional applications, Ethan looked at Lori with confusion. She shrugged, looking equally lost. In the row ahead of them sat a blob-like creature that kept changing colors. Next to it was an insect-like alien with shimmering wings and sharp clicking mandibles. "Tulla thinks the humans cannot understand basic physics," the insect alien said loudly to the blob. "Their brains evolved for running from predators, not science." "Be nice, Tulla," the blob replied, rippling in what might have been laughter. "I'm Grin," it said, turning partly toward Ethan. "Don't mind Tulla. Vesperians are always competitive." As the class continued, Ethan was surprised to find that once he got past the strange terminology, many of the concepts were similar to what he had learned in his high school physics class. When Professor Velnax asked a question about force distribution, Ethan raised his hand without thinking. "Yes, the human student," Professor Velnax pointed at Ethan. "The force would distribute along the path of least resistance, creating stress points at these junctions," Ethan said, pointing to the diagram floating in the center of the room. The room went quiet. Professor Velnax's body pulsed with bright lights. "Correct. Perhaps Deathworlders understand more than Tulla believes." Tulla's wings buzzed in what seemed like annoyance. At the end of the class, Professor Velnax floated to the center of the platform. "Your first assignment is a practical application challenge. You will devise a method to move a stone cube weighing 500 of your Earth pounds across rough terrain without using any powered technology." Ethan looked at Lori. This sounded like something humans did all the time on Earth. "You will present your solutions in 5 days," the professor continued. "This is a basic challenge to warm up your thinking." As they left the classroom, alien students were already discussing complex mathematical formulas and theoretical approaches. "Did that assignment seem really simple to you?" Ethan asked Lori quietly. "Yeah," she nodded. "My family owns a moving company back home. We move stuff heavier than that every day. I think we might have an advantage on this one," Ethan said with a smile. Little did he know how much his simple Earth knowledge would soon surprise the entire class. Later that evening, Ethan sat in the Academy's common area looking at the assignment details on his tablet. The screen showed a stone cube measuring roughly 3 feet on each side with an estimated weight of 500 Earth pounds. The terrain was uneven dirt with small rocks and a gentle slope. The goal was to move the cube 100 feet without using any powered technology. Around him, alien students were gathered in small groups, drawing complex diagrams and arguing about theoretical approaches. Ethan spotted Tulla surrounded by 5 other insectoid students, her wings fluttering as she gestured at a holographic display. "Mind if I join you?" Lori asked, sitting down next to Ethan with her own tablet. "Please do. Are you seeing what I'm seeing with this assignment?" Ethan asked. Lori nodded. "Back home, we just use some rollers and levers. Maybe a pulley system if we needed to go uphill. Nothing fancy." "Exactly. But look at what they're doing." Ethan nodded toward a group of tentacled aliens who were creating a mathematical model with hundreds of equations floating in the air between them. I overheard Gren talking about friction coefficients and gravity compensation algorithms, Lori said with a small laugh. "They're making this way more complicated than it needs to be." Zix approached their table, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "How are you approaching the assignment?" Tulla says she has already developed a theoretical model using 11-dimensional mathematics. "We're still thinking about it," Ethan said carefully, not wanting to reveal their simple solution yet. "May I join your group?" Most students have already formed teams, and I find Tulla's group intimidating, Zix admitted. "Sure," Lori said, "but we might approach this differently than the others." "Differently how?" Zix asked, sitting down with them. Ethan and Lori exchanged looks. Ethan decided to be honest. "On Earth, moving heavy objects without power tools is something we've been doing for thousands of years. We built the pyramids and Stonehenge using simple tools and physics." Zix's eyes widened. "But those are ancient monuments. Surely you use more advanced methods now." "Of course we do," Lori said. "But the basic principles are the same, and plenty of people still use manual methods when power isn't available or practical." "Fascinating. Deathworld adaptations at work," Zix said, his skin changing to a lighter shade of green. "Your species evolved physical strength due to your high gravity, so you developed methods that utilize that strength." "I guess we did," Ethan said, thinking about it. "We never considered it special." "That gives me an idea," Lori said. "What if instead of writing a theoretical paper like everyone else, we create a practical demonstration?" "You mean actually move the cube?" Zix asked, sounding shocked. "Why not? The assignment is about practical applications, right?" Ethan said, warming to the idea. "We could show how humans have solved this problem throughout history." "Professor Velmax would be impressed by a different approach," Zix agreed. "No one ever does practical demonstrations in theoretical classes." As they discussed their plan, Ethan noticed Tulla watching them from across the room. Her compound eyes seemed to narrow, and she clicked her mandibles before turning back to her group. "I think we have competition," Ethan whispered. "Tulla is top of the class," Zix explained. "She does not like the idea of Deathworlders outperforming her." "Well, that just makes me want to succeed even more," Lori said with determination. Ethan nodded. "Let's head to the library. I want to research some ancient Earth techniques to make sure we present this properly." As they walked to the library, Ethan felt a new sense of purpose. What had seemed like a strange assignment was now an opportunity to show the value of human knowledge. The aliens might have advanced mathematics and technology, but sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. He just hoped their practical approach would work as well as he thought it would. The Academy library was enormous, with data terminals floating in the air and shelves that moved on their own to bring requested materials. Ethan, Lori, and Zix found a quiet corner to begin their research. "Computer, show Earth historical methods for moving heavy objects without powered technology," Ethan said to the terminal. The screen filled with images of ancient Egyptians moving large stones, medieval builders constructing castles, and modern techniques used by people in remote areas. "This is perfect," Ethan said, studying the diagrams. "Look at these roller systems. We could definitely adapt this." Lori nodded, pointing to another image. "And these lever techniques. My dad taught me how to use leverage to move furniture when I was a kid." Zix watched with all 6 eyes wide open. "You learned this as a child?" "Sure," Lori said. "My family has been in the moving business for generations. I spent summers helping my dad with jobs." Ethan suddenly remembered something from his past. "When I was 14, I helped my Uncle Kevin renovate his house. We had to move a massive stone fountain across his yard without damaging his grass." "How did you do it?" Zix asked. "We made a simple track with wooden planks, put round logs under the fountain as rollers, and used ropes and a basic pulley system to pull it. It took time, but it wasn't difficult." Ethan began sketching a similar system on his tablet. His design was simple: wooden rollers, a flat platform, ropes, and a basic pulley system attached to a lever for mechanical advantage. With a system like this, 2 humans could easily move a 500-pound stone, Ethan explained. "The rollers reduce friction, and the pulley system multiplies our strength." "But wouldn't it be more efficient to calculate the exact mathematical formulas for optimal force distribution?" Zix asked, still thinking like the other aliens. Lori smiled. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. Watch." She grabbed some items from their table: her water bottle, a stylus, and a small book. She placed the book on its edge, put the stylus under it, and placed her water bottle on top of the book. "This is a basic lever. With this simple setup, I can lift something much heavier than I could with just my strength." She pressed down on the long end of the book, and the water bottle rose into the air. Zix's skin changed to a bright yellow color, which Ethan had learned indicated excitement. "Remarkable. No complex calculations required. Just intuitive physics." "Exactly," Ethan said. "Humans have been using these principles for thousands of years, long before we had the math to explain why they work." They spent the next few hours refining their plan. Ethan created detailed drawings of their proposed system. Lori added notes about the proper techniques for setting up rollers and pulleys. Zix contributed by finding information about the specific terrain they would face in the assignment. "I think we're ready to build a model," Ethan said, looking at their completed design. "We should test it before the presentation." "The fabrication lab has materials we can use," Zix suggested. "We can make a scaled-down version to demonstrate the principle." As they were preparing to leave, Tulla and 2 of her friends entered the library. She stopped when she saw them, her compound eyes fixed on their tablet with the simple mechanical drawings. "Is that your solution?" she asked, her voice containing a buzzing sound that Ethan had learned indicated amusement. "How primitive. Our team has created a theoretical model using quantum probability fields to reduce the effective mass." "Sometimes primitive works just fine," Lori replied with a confident smile. "We shall see, Deathworlders." Tulla clicked her mandibles. "We shall see." After Tulla left, Ethan looked at his teammates. "We need to make sure our demonstration is perfect. Let's get to the fabrication lab." As they walked, Ethan felt both nervous and excited. Their solution was simple compared to what the aliens were creating, but he believed it would work. Sometimes the oldest ideas were still the best ones. The day of the presentations arrived quickly. Ethan felt nervous as he, Lori, and Zix entered the classroom with their small wooden model and diagrams. Professor Velnax floated at the center of the room, his blue skin glowing slightly. "Today we will see your solutions to the stone-moving problem," the professor announced. "Who would like to present first?" A group of tentacled aliens volunteered, floating to the front of the room. Their leader, a purple being with 8 waving arms, activated a holographic display showing complex mathematical formulas. "Our solution uses wave harmonics to create a temporary local gravity reduction field," the alien explained. By calculating the exact frequency needed to match the stone's mass, we can reduce its effective weight by 82.4%. Professor Velnax listened carefully before pointing out a flaw. Your calculations assume a perfectly uniform density in the stone. What happens if there are natural variations? The tentacled aliens looked at each other nervously. The system would possibly fail, one admitted. This pattern continued with the next three groups. Each presented increasingly complex theoretical solutions, and each time Professor Velnax found a practical problem that would prevent their ideas from working in real-world conditions. Then it was Tulla's turn. Her insect wings buzzed with confidence as she approached the front. Our solution utilizes quantum probability manipulation, she announced. By increasing the probability of the stone occupying positions progressively closer to the destination, we can effectively walk it across the terrain without traditional movement. Her holographic display showed an impressive array of equations that made Ethan's head spin. Professor Velnax studied her work. Interesting approach. However, the energy required to maintain the probability field would exceed the limits of the assignment. You are essentially using powered technology, just in a very clever disguise. Tulla's mandibles clicked in frustration. But Professor, the energy comes from natural quantum fluctuations, not from an artificial power source. The manipulation of those fluctuations would require a powered device. Professor Velnax countered. Tulla returned to her seat, her compound eyes fixed angrily on Ethan and Lori. Next group, Professor Velnax called. Ethan took a deep breath as they walked to the front of the room. Instead of activating a holographic display, he placed their simple wooden model on the professor's platform. Our solution uses methods that humans have employed for thousands of years on Earth, Ethan began. We propose using wooden rollers, levers, and a pulley system to move the stone. A murmur ran through the classroom. Ethan could hear whispers of primitive and simplistic from the alien students. Lori stepped forward. The key to our approach is using the basic principles of physics in a practical way. We start by creating a flat wooden platform that sits on cylindrical wooden rollers. She demonstrated with their model, placing the small wooden platform on round dowels. The stone is placed on the platform, Ethan continued, putting a small block on their model. As we pull the platform forward, the rear rollers are continually moved to the front, creating an ongoing track. Zix added, for the uphill portions, we add this simple pulley system attached to a lever, which multiplies the applied force by a factor of 4. Professor Velnax floated closer to examine their model. This solution uses no powered technology at all. None, Lori confirmed. Just wood, rope, and human muscle power. And you believe 2 humans could move a 500-pound stone with this system? The professor asked, his tone skeptical. Absolutely, Ethan said confidently. Humans have moved much heavier objects using similar methods throughout our history. The classroom was silent for a moment before erupting in buzz of conversation. A clever theoretical exercise, Professor Velnax said, but I question whether such a simple approach would work in practice with real-world variables like uneven terrain and friction. Ethan looked at Lori, then back at the professor. We could show you, he offered. Professor Velnax's skin brightened with interest. A practical demonstration. That would be unusual but informative. Very well. Tomorrow we will test your theory in the simulation chamber. As they returned to their seats, Ethan noticed Tulla's wings buzzing with what seemed like anger or perhaps worry. Their simple solution might just work where all the complex theories had failed. The next day, the entire class gathered in the Academy's simulation chamber. It was a large room with bare metal walls that could be programmed to create any environment. Professor Velnax floated in the center, his blue skin glowing brighter than usual. Today we will test the human solution in practice, he announced. The simulation chamber has been programmed with the exact conditions from the assignment. The metal walls shimmered and changed. Suddenly, they were standing on rough terrain with dirt, small rocks, and a gentle slope. In the center of the room sat a large stone cube, exactly 3 feet on each side. Is that a real stone? Ethan asked. surprised. Yes, Professor Velnax confirmed. The simulation chamber can create solid matter for testing purposes. This stone weighs exactly 500 of your Earth pounds. Tulla and several other alien students gathered at one side of the room, their expressions showing various forms of skepticism. Gren, the blob-like alien, quivered with what seemed like excitement. The humans will now demonstrate their solution, Professor Velnax announced. They have been provided with the materials they requested: wooden planks, cylindrical logs, rope, and a metal bar for leverage. No powered technology is allowed. Ethan and Lori looked at the pile of materials, then at each other. Just like helping your uncle with that fountain, Lori said with an encouraging smile. And just like moving furniture with your dad, Ethan replied. They got to work. First, they created a flat platform using several wooden planks tied together with rope. Then they placed 3 round logs under the platform as rollers. We need to get the stone onto the platform, Ethan explained to the watching class. For this, we'll use a simple lever system. He and Lori positioned a thick wooden plank next to the stone, with a small rock acting as a fulcrum. Together, they pushed down on the long end of the lever, lifting one edge of the heavy stone cube. Zix quickly slid a small platform under the raised edge. Now we do the same on each side, Lori explained, gradually raising the stone and adding support until it's high enough to slide onto our roller platform. The alien students watched in silence as the 2 humans methodically raised the stone using only the lever. Their movements were coordinated and efficient, showing years of practical experience. Within minutes, they had the heavy cube balanced on wooden supports at the same height as their platform. Now comes the tricky part, Ethan said, wiping sweat from his forehead. The room's artificial gravity had been set to Earth normal, making the work physically demanding. Together, Ethan and Lori pushed the stone sideways onto their platform. The wood creaked but held firm under the weight. The platform is now on the rollers, Lori explained to the class. As we pull it forward, the rear roller becomes free, and we move it to the front to create a continuous rolling track. She demonstrated by pulling the platform forward slightly using a rope attached to the front. As the rear roller became free, Ethan quickly moved it to the front of the platform. This is the basic movement system, Ethan explained. For the uphill section, we'll add our pulley system to multiply our force. As they approached the sloped section, Ethan and Lori set up a simple pulley using the rope threaded through a wooden frame. With the mechanical advantage of the pulley, they were able to pull the stone up the incline with steady effort. The alien students began to murmur among themselves as they watched the humans move the heavy stone across the terrain using nothing but simple tools and their own strength. Professor Velnax floated closer, his many eyes focused intently on the demonstration. Fascinating, he said quietly. Such simple principles, yet so effective. After 20 minutes of steady work, Ethan and Lori reached the designated endpoint. They were sweating and breathing hard, but smiling with accomplishment. Demonstration complete, Ethan announced. 500-pound stone moved 100 feet across rough terrain. No powered technology used. The room was completely silent. The silence in the simulation chamber lasted only a few seconds before it erupted into excited chatter. Professor Velnax raised all 4 of his arms, and the room gradually quieted down. What we have witnessed today, the professor said, his voice resonating through the chamber, is a perfect example of why the Galactic Confederation values diversity of thought and evolution. He floated closer to Ethan and Lori, who were still catching their breath beside the stone cube. The human solution succeeded not because it was mathematically superior, but because it was practically superior. It accounted for real-world variables that many theoretical approaches overlooked. Tulla's wings buzzed as she stepped forward. But Professor, their method is so primitive. There was no advanced mathematics, no theoretical modeling. Just physical labor. Precisely, Professor Velnax replied. And that is what makes it brilliant. Consider the evolutionary path of humans. They developed on a high-gravity world with constant physical threats. Their bodies evolved for strength and endurance, and their minds evolved to find practical solutions that could be implemented with limited tools. The professor turned to face the entire class. Most species represented here evolved on worlds where physical strength was less important than mental capacity. You developed advanced theoretical thinking, but may have lost connection to practical application along the way. Gren, the blob-like alien, rippled forward. So you're saying that different evolutionary paths created different types of intelligence? Exactly, the professor nodded. The universe does not have just one form of intelligence or one correct approach to problem solving. Ethan took a drink from his water bottle, then spoke up. On Earth, we have a saying, keep it simple. Sometimes the most direct solution is the best one, even if it doesn't seem as advanced. Zix's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, but your solution still used physics principles. Leverage, friction reduction, mechanical advantage. You just applied them directly rather than calculating them first. That's right, Lori said. These are principles humans have understood for thousands of years, long before we had the math to explain why they work. Professor Velnax's skin glowed brighter. This is why the Confederation encourages exchange programs. Each species brings unique perspectives based on their evolutionary history. Today, the Deathworlders have taught us something valuable. The students began to gather around the demonstration setup, examining the simple tools with new interest. Several aliens tentatively tried to pull the platform, surprised by how much effort it required even with the mechanical advantage. Tulla approached Ethan and Lori, her insectoid features difficult to read. Your solution was effective, she admitted, her mandibles clicking softly. I had not considered that physical implementation could be so important. And I couldn't begin to understand your quantum probability calculations, Ethan replied diplomatically. Different skills, that's all. Tulla seemed to consider this for a moment. Perhaps we could exchange knowledge. I could help you understand higher dimensional mathematics, and you could teach me about these practical applications. Lori smiled. I'd like that. Zix bounced excitedly beside them. This gives me an idea. We should organize a workshop where humans demonstrate these techniques to interested students. Physical problem solving from a Deathworld perspective. Professor Velnax overheard this suggestion. An excellent proposal. In fact, I believe this could become a regular addition to our curriculum. The practical wisdom of Deathworlders has been overlooked for too long in our academic setting. As the aliens continued to examine their simple machine, Ethan looked at Lori with a smile. What had started as a simple homework assignment had turned into something much more meaningful, a bridge between different ways of thinking, different evolutionary paths, and different forms of intelligence. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Ethan felt truly valued not despite being a Deathworlder, but because of it. 2 weeks later, Ethan stood at the entrance of a newly designated classroom. A sign above the door read Practical Applications from Deathworlders. He couldn't help but smile at how quickly things had changed. Ready for your first class as a teacher? Lori asked, joining him with a box of materials for today's demonstration. As ready as I'll ever be, Ethan replied. I never thought my summer job building fences would become valuable academic knowledge. They entered the room to find it already half full of alien students. Zix waved all 4 arms excitedly from the front row. Beside him sat Gren, and surprisingly, Tulla. Professor Velnax floated in a corner, speaking with the Academy's director, a tall crystalline being who sparkled in the room's light. The director nodded as they talked, occasionally glancing at Ethan and Lori, with an expression that might have been curiosity or approval. It was hard to tell with a crystalline face. Attention, everyone. Professor Velnax called as the room filled. Today marks the first session of our new Practical Applications course. Our human students have agreed to share their Deathworld knowledge and perspective. Ethan stepped forward, trying to hide his nervousness. Thank you all for coming. Today we're going to talk about something humans call mechanical advantage. How simple tools can multiply force. Lori began distributing small kits they had prepared with the help of the fabrication lab. Each kit contained miniature versions of levers, pulleys, and inclined planes. These are the 6 simple machines that form the basis of all mechanical work on Earth, Ethan explained. They'd been used by humans for thousands of years to accomplish tasks that would otherwise be impossible. As the class progressed, Ethan was amazed by how interested the aliens were. They asked thoughtful questions and experimented eagerly with the models. Even Tulla seemed genuinely engaged, her wings occasionally buzzing when she successfully used a pulley system to lift a weight. After class, the director approached Ethan and Lori. Up close, the crystalline being was even more impressive, standing nearly 7 feet tall with a body that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. "Remarkable session," the director said, voice sounding like chiming bells. "I have approved Professor Velmax's recommendation to make this a permanent part of our curriculum. Additionally, we would like to invite more human students to our academy next term." "That's wonderful news," Lori said, smiling. "Your demonstration with the stone has sparked interest across the academy." The director continued. "Professor Velmax is preparing a research paper on the benefits of incorporating Deathworlder perspectives into advanced education." Later that evening, Ethan sat at his desk in his room, composing a message to his parents back on Earth. Zix was quietly studying nearby, his skin a calm shade of blue. "Dear Mom and Dad," Ethan typed, "you won't believe what's happened here. Remember how worried I was about keeping up with super-intelligent aliens? Turns out they have as much to learn from us as we do from them." He went on to describe the stone-moving assignment and how it had changed perceptions about humans at the academy. He told them about the new class and how he was now considered a valuable consultant for engineering problems. "It's funny," he continued typing. "All those summers helping Uncle Kevin with construction projects, which I thought were just chores, turned out to be valuable galactic knowledge. The things we take for granted on Earth are considered specialized skills here." As he finished his message, Ethan looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a harsh death world that had shaped humans into what they were: strong, practical problem solvers who didn't give up easily. For the first time, Ethan felt truly proud of his heritage. Humans might not have evolved with the mathematical brilliance of the Vesperians or the technological intuition of the Centaurians, but they had their own unique strengths. Their evolution on a dangerous world had created a resilience and practical intelligence that even the most advanced civilizations could learn from. Being a Deathworlder, Ethan realized, wasn't something to be embarrassed about. It was something to celebrate.